Welcome back to episode 4 of NLC Coach's Corner. This week is all about off-road running compared to road running. And there is no better setting than to present this from than out here on the trails. So one of the most common questions we get as coaches is, should I be doing all my running or some of my running off-road if all my races that I do are on the road? And I guess the point we need to start at with this is, well, what are the benefits of firstly running off-road? So someone like the trail where you see behind me, I'm in the beautiful, the absolutely stunning Bradgate Park, Old John just behind me up there, compared to the benefits and potentially the downsides of running all of your mileage on road. So let's start with the difference in the surface. So as we know, road, particularly over here in the UK, quite a firm asphalt type surface. So a lot of pounding on the road, particularly if you're doing repetitive mileage, and all your miles are coming on that surface. We also know that when people run in built-up areas such as city centres, the pavements can be quite uneven, particularly if those pavements have been built over the roots of a tree. They often stick up. It's sometimes hard to stick to pavements, and sometimes you're dodging traffic as well. So from a safety perspective, it's not always the best place to be to do all your training. Then throw in the mix the traffic element, having to jump on and off pavements if you're trying to run faster, if you're trying to do an actual session and you're trying to run at a specific speed, that can become difficult. So you've got to find a clear area that sometimes is not just traffic free, but also pedestrian free. It's really quite tricky to find that balance. Compare that to like somewhere like this, on an evening like this, where yes, obviously the weather helps and it is absolutely stunning, but there's no cars, there's no traffic, and there's very few people. Yes, you get the odd dog walker and you've got to be aware of that, but often it provides a really nice environment for us to go and train. So that's a little bit about the environment, but what about those speeds? What about if we're trying to hit specific splits? And as runners, we all know we can become a little bit, or sometimes more than a little bit, obsessed with those splits that are displaying on the watch. So when you're on the trails or when you're off-road, you're going to have to accept that it's a little bit more tricky to sometimes hit those splits that you always want to see, because the ground, it's just simply not as fast. You might be on rugged terrain. Again, I'm going to go back to where I am. Just look at the paths around me. It's a little bit bumpy. It's not as even. It's not as smooth. And you don't get what I call as good as a purchase off the ground that you would get. You don't get that bounce, that nice reactivity that you get off that asphalt or off that pavement when you're on the roads. So you have to accept that those splits are maybe going to be a little bit down on what you'd expect to see on a road loop, or certainly if you're running in straight lines. However, it doesn't mean the effort isn't going to be the same, and you will get the same benefit out of that session if the effort level is exactly the same. Some people, well, a lot of runners like to run to heart rate. And in fact, it can sometimes be an even more, or it certainly can be more of a challenging workout being on the trails, and it will help you to run that little bit harder or put that more effort in because it becomes more demanding by being on that type of surface. So you might not have to run as fast to get the same benefit because the effort level is going to rise. Now, that's looking at the splits and the paces specifically and almost getting the same bang for your buck for not quite putting in the same level or certainly the same pace or intensity. So sometimes you might want to mix it up to get that little bit more bang for your buck by going on the trails and giving yourself that little bit of a harder workout. The other thing that we might want to consider when we go off-road compared to being on the road is that the surface being softer might just save the legs a little bit. So you don't get that impact. You don't get that same level of shock absorption through those joints that you're going to get from that repetitive pounding on the road. That being said, sometimes it can be a little bit more demanding on the ankles, particularly if they're not stable. So if you're a runner who really struggles with stability around the ankle, you may want to add some trail or off-road running in to strengthen those areas. But you certainly wouldn't want to overdo it so that you're doing too much and putting too much demand on those areas. This is where it comes down to me as a coach about getting the balance right and being prepared to mix your training up. So yes, if you are running on the roads and racing on the roads, you might want to do some of your repetitions on that road type surface. Certainly for those faster reps and that specificity, if you're looking to run that particular speed, as I mentioned earlier. But For those easy runs, why not take them off road? Why not go into a nice wooded area or onto the trails or onto a nice grass surface and just mix it up? Try to offload that impact a little bit, particularly on those joints, and also get that nice little bit of conditioning on the feet, on the ankles, on the calves, which in turn might be a nice strength benefit to help strengthen some of the areas if you're particularly struggling to strengthen them in, say, the gym. Because as we like to say, and as I mentioned in other videos, the outdoors, the great outdoors, can often be nature's version of the gym. That leads me on to the hills. And we've done 2 videos on hills so far. We've done downhill running and we've done uphill running. When you're out on the trails and your easy runs, it's important to recognize that that effort level should remain pretty consistent. What I mean by that is, for an easy run, we call that conversational pace. You should be able to hold down a conversation with a running buddy or a running partner. And if you haven't got a running buddy or a running partner with you, then why not try speaking out loud to yourself or even singing yourself a song? Just try not to annoy people who you might be passing. But it should be that nice, easy conversational pace. It means we're not working too hard aerobically. We're not out of breath. We can't not catch our breath. If you are that much out of breath, then you're probably working a little bit too hard. So you need to drop that intensity. So the effort level wants to remain pretty consistent. However, on the trails, on the hills, particularly if it's undulating, again, I'm here in the park at the minute, I'm looking around at different hills around me. That means my pace is going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. The reason for that, because my effort level is going to remain pretty consistent. But as I'm going downhill, my pace might just increase, even though my effort's still the same, conversational pace. But as I'm going up a hill, I might need to even break out into a fast walk, which is exactly what I've done tonight. I've been for a run. I got to a steep section. I thought, a little bit out of breath here. It's also quite warm. You know what? I'm just going to go into a steady walk. I'm going to keep it at a conversational pace with my wife, Gemma, because I don't want to go too hard. It's an easy run. And that leads me on to my final point, understanding the purpose of your runs or your sessions. And that can really help you to decide where you should be doing them. So if the purpose is to go and have an easy run in a nice environment and go and meet some people and socialize, why not take that running off the road and onto the trails? It's often safe. It's a really nice environment to do it. And you get out in nature. There's huge amount of mental health benefits that go with that as well. And that mental stimulation of being somewhere that is just beautiful and stunning. However, if the purpose is to run a little bit faster, if you are chasing some splits or you've got specific splits that you want to hit, then why not go onto the road or even potentially the track, which I've done a video on already on our NLC Coach's Corner. So go back and check that track video out, particularly around pacing those track repetitions. But it might be that you want to do a faster session and there's no problem at all with going on the road. For marathon runners, if it's those long runs, those big long runs where you want to get some of your long runs done on the road because you're going to race the marathon on the road, I can totally see that. The specificity of being on the road is probably going to help. But don't be afraid and don't ever feel like you need to do every single run, every single long run on the road. You do not need to do that. You can take those long runs off the road. You can enjoy some of your long runs, or you can even mix it up. Why not start on the trail and move on to the roads? Particularly if the trails are nice and firm, then you could just stick with the same footwear. But obviously, if they're a bit wet and a bit muddy, you do need to consider what shoes you're wearing. So I hope you've enjoyed that episode all about off-road running compared to on-the-road running and the differences between the two, the benefits of them both, and why it is important to potentially mix up the surfaces that you're running on. As always, if you have enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, comment, and even subscribe to our channel. And if you'd like to find out more about New Levels Coaching, why not head over to newlevelscoaching.co.uk and have a look at all the things that we have on there, including lots of useful resources. But if you want to get in touch about potential coaching, why not book a free discovery call with us today and find out if we can help you to find your running potential. As always, continue to enjoy your training. Good luck if you are racing, and we'll see you all again very, very soon.